Raise your hands if you like the thing that you just wrote better than what you liked before. Oh, that's great. I actually like mine less, but there was some stuff that I wasn't able to recreate and I'm kind of mad about. But I think it is more organized. I mean, one of the things that taking the time to rewrite, even when you're rewriting from scratch, does is that first sort of burst of energy that may feel very creative and exciting, and you can't stop writing, and you've just got this idea, and it's going and going and going. One of the things that does is, I think it gives you ideas and angles. It gives you an understanding of the people or condiments that you're writing about. But it isn't always organized in a way that will help your reader get what you want them to get and feel what you want them to feel and experience the story that you're trying to share with them as vividly as they might. That process of organizing information, of choosing how you're going to tell the story in a way that they will care about, is not necessarily something that comes out in that burst of energy, which is exciting for us as writers, but sometimes for readers can feel a little bit tedious and even self-indulgent. So I think that all writing, and this is the last thing I'll say before I take your questions for a little bit, I think that all writing is rewriting. And I think that once we kind of think of it that way, rewriting, revising loses some of the torture that we associate with it, some of the unpleasantness that we associate with it, because that first explosion of creative energy that you feel when you're working on something, or maybe if you're like me, you feel frustrated and angry, and then you have like a 3-minute feeling of excitement, and then you feel frustrated and angry, but you liked that 3-minute feeling so much that you just keep chasing it like some kind of miserable crack addict. But that burst, I rather forgot where I was going. That first burst of writing, when you are just putting something down and it's flooding into you, and you've got all these ideas and all these things that it might be, a lot of which happens before you start to write stuff down, and then you start to write stuff down, and of course it's very difficult to capture the magic that's in your head when you're thinking about all the things that might be. And that's because that first act of writing it down is an act of revision. You've got this thing inside of your head that you then try to translate into a story on a page. And the story on the page doesn't mean anything. It's just scratches of ink or pencil on paper, unless you or someone else who's reading it can translate it. I mean, that's why I just got sent the Serbian edition of Looking for Alaska, and I don't know if they called it Looking for Alaska, or anything else about it, except that my name is Dzongrin. John Grin. Right? Because I don't know how to translate those scratches on a page into ideas. And I think that that process is a revision. That process of the story that's in your head becoming a text-based thing that you then try to give to someone, and hopefully they read it and the same story exists inside of their head. That process of getting it from your head onto the paper is an act of revision. So the first moment of writing, you are also revising. In every moment of writing, you are revising. And that's why I don't really know when I'm done, and I just kind of stop when I get someone to read it and they say that it's okay to stop. That's the only way that I know that I'm finished, because I actually really love to go back to a story. That's also why I don't read my books now, because it's just really uncomfortable, because I can't change anything anymore. So I think that if there's anything that I can tell you that might be at all helpful, I think that's it. Don't be afraid to go back and go back. And the wonderful thing about computers and paper is that you don't have to tear them up to start over. And so now when I'm rewriting a story, I just start a new file and I have them, side by side, and I'll look at the old story sometimes, the old draft, but mostly I'll be trying to bring in my new ideas. 90% of the books that I've published, of each book that I've published, 90% of the words that are in that book were not in the first draft of the book. And I am a big believer that in that process of revision is really when the story comes out that will live inside of other people. I want to take your questions about, if we can limit it in this particular arena. Can you still hear me in the back? Okay. I love the acoustics in here. We should just stay in here. Plus, I feel like we would be safe in the event of almost any natural disaster. But I want to, if we can limit the questions here to books and writing questions instead of like video blog and how's Henry questions. I'm doing a thing tonight that I hope you will all come to, but I understand if you're bored with me. At the University of Indianapolis, where you can ask video blog and Henry questions. In fact, Henry will be there. Don't get near him, please. He's only like 18 days old, and he shouldn't be looked at by humans. I don't even touch him unless I'm washed up to my shoulders. And so yeah, he'll be there, but you can't look at him. Okay, but questions about books and writing. Otherwise, I can keep talking. But yes.
I was just wondering how you got your start as a writer and how you kind of knew that's what you wanted to do.
That's a very good question. How did I get my start and how did I know is what I wanted to do? Well, I should say a couple things about the actual being a writer part of being a writer. The first is that when people tell you that it's an unrealistic career goal, which they will tell you a lot, they are both wrong and right. There are a lot of books that get published every year. And there are a lot of things that aren't books that get published every year and read by people. And there is no reason why you cannot be among the people who write those things. I used to work for this magazine called Booklist. Booklist magazine comes out every 2 weeks, all year round, and all it is 3 columns of book reviews for like 100 pages. Every 2 weeks we reviewed 400 books. I'm trying to do math. That's like 10,000 books, I think, ish, maybe. I might be wrong. I might have my decimals off. Someone will tell me shortly, probably. That's every year, and each of those 10,000 books is written by someone. So there is no. Don't let people tell you that there's no way to write for an audience, but do let people tell you that it is not a good way to make money, and that you should expect to work at something other than writing. I've been extremely lucky in the last 2 years that I've been able to just write, but I also have basically a day job making videos with my brother, which takes up a lot of time. I like it. It's nothing against the work, but it takes up a lot of time, and it's a weird day job, but it's a job. And if you don't have a job, then your job becomes like Meg Cabot, for instance, doesn't have a job, but Meg Cabot's job is being Meg Cabot, on the road, writing the blog entries every day. At night, she's got to watch horrible TV shows so that she can talk about them with her audience the next morning. That's a job. It's a weird job, but it's a job. I also think that writers, in many ways, benefit from not having that intense pressure to write something that a ton of people will read so that you can make a living. I think it's kind of bad to have all that pressure on you, because the way the economics of publishing works, not to bore the hell out of you, is that you have to sell, to really have it as a job, a full-time job, you have to sell a ton of books. You figure you make about 50 cents on every time you sell a paperback. At 50 cents a paperback, you have to sell, I'm not good at math, but a ton of books.